So we are joined today by Clayton Payne, who, shall I introduce you as a pet food expert?
Yeah, no, feel free. I like that.
Like it's asking permission. How can we introduce you?
You are many things.
I am many things.
You are a font of knowledge on many things. You have got your own podcast, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But for now, do you want to introduce yourself to everybody and tell them a little bit about what it is you do?
Okay, so my current role is the Chief Operating Officer of the Bug Factory, which is an insect company that develops industrial breeding systems for black soldier fly larvae for use in feed. So that can be pet food or it can be animal food, so things like agriculture food, wild bird food, etc. We also have a retail arm of the company which makes self-grow mealworm kits, which we distribute in Australia, United States, Canada, and the EU and the UK, obviously. And we're partnered with really big retail chains in America, such as Chewy, Petco, and Tractor Supply. At the moment, I'm kind of what I consider pet industry adjacent, but I'm someone who's been in the pet industry my whole life. My parents had a pet shop. I grew up in a pet shop in the Old Kent Road in London. I worked for a dog food company when I left school. I then set up a distribution business with a friend of mine, which we ran for nearly 25 years, starting from a small warehouse out the back of a shop. And sort of when we sold it, we had a revenue of over 4 million a year, supplying hundreds of B2B accounts across the UK and Ireland.
And that company was Dobbyman, wasn't it?
Dobbyman, yeah. So you were one of my customers.
I was one of your customers.
You were.
And your chews were amazing because they were very different from what else you could buy from, your general suppliers.
Yeah, so we tried to be different. We tried to innovate in the sector because if I take you back to when I first started, we were just selling rabbit food, peanuts, wild bird food, bones, ears. So very basic products, but it was the market was a lot bigger scale, but as a result, we had much bigger competition. So we were up against some really big wholesalers, like the big one at the time was a company called Woodpecker, and there was another one called One Pets, Thacker's. There was loads of these big companies, and so we just couldn't compete. So from a young age, I was like, I'm going to have to innovate. I'm going to have to do something differently. And my parents live in Belgium. I grew up in Belgium. So my parents moved to Belgium when I was like 12 or 13. I grew up in Belgium. I actually finished my schooling in Ireland. So I was already quite used to going into different pet businesses because my family are pet industry people. And so I was always obsessed with the industry. So it was like, okay, what are we doing in the UK what we're not doing in the UK that we're doing in Europe, in Ireland, in different markets. And so that's really what I was doing, is I was scouting markets, seeing different products, bringing them in, trying to do it in the most, I would say, low value way I could, because obviously it's always a risk. What you don't want to do is buy 20 pallets of something and then realize it's garbage no one wants because, we were working with our own money. We weren't like an investor-led company like you get today, where you just get bunged £1 million and off you go and throw your money on Facebook ads and see if you go bust or not. That's what we did. So we were out scouring the market, seeing different products. And I'm a dog enthusiast. I have 5 dogs, and so everything I used to buy, I used to bring home, try on my dogs, see why they were good, look into the actual product itself to see what the real benefits were and how I could actually turn that into unique selling points to actually sell it. Because at the time, everyone was like, why would I not give a bone or a pig's ear? Sounds ridiculous today, right? Why would I not give a roasted bone?
Yeah.
They're great. Nowadays everyone's like, crack your teeth on them, and they're rubbish. There's nothing in it for them. But at the time, that was what we had.
That's all we had, yeah.
Yeah, and so we were up against it. And look, I remember when I first bought a pallet of chicken feet in, it was like $9.99, something like that, $19.98, $9.99, something like that. And I was friends with a guy called Jeff Hollings. So he was the guy who owned Hollings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've since sold out. He's since sold out to Assisi, which is like a PE, a private equity firm. But I said to Jeff, I said, look, can you get hold of any chicken feet for us? He said, okay, I've got a contact, but you're going to have to take a pallet. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I believe in this because obviously, everyone, when I first bought them in, people are like, well, it's full of bones, isn't it? You can't give it chicken bones. And I'm like, no, it's cartilage, and the cartilage is good because it's natural glucosamine. I mean, it's not, if you've got dog with joint issues, it's not going to fix it, but it's a natural way of getting a little bit of that into the product. And if you're going to give that rather than a piece of, let's say, like a pig's ear, it's a better product, and it's better for smaller dogs. And so it was a big risk, but it's one that paid off. And I was selling stuff nationally before we even had like a website. So it was, but that's how we had to roll.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I quite like that last bit of you were selling before you had a website.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Like so many businesses now, like even like startups, or even if you've been in it for ages, like you can absolutely have a business without a website. It is possible.
It's funny actually because I think the problem is I think everyone just assumes they need a website. But I think the reality is unless your website is banging, it's actually a waste of time because like what you even got it for, to be honest.
Yeah.
But you just need a way of transferring your business's like USPs across, and that could just be as simple as I'm selling X product. This is my product. This is my price, and that could just be as simple as a flyer. I mean, I used to work on flyers for years. I used to send out a couple hundred flyers every month, and that was my marketing spend, other than me going out visiting people. The need for a website only really came into me, like I would say in the sort of mid 2000s, when I actually needed a payment vehicle to deal with these people. Mm-hmm. Because before then it was like, send us a check. And they'd send you a check and you're like, well, I want to send it till it's cleared, and it's like a week to clear. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Those good old days of it.
I found a checkbook the other day.
I still use a checkbook for my raw food supplier is cash and carry. So I still use a check. That's the only reason I use a checkbook.
I don't think I've seen a check in years now at this point, to be honest.
As if you still use a check.
Yeah,
well, actually, it's not even you, is it? It's
if you look through the stubs, it's just like the same TPMS all the way through.
Why?
I know, yeah. Because I've never I can't bother to go and get cash out, so I just use a checkbook.
Traveller's checks. That's what they should bring back. Traveller's checks.
Oh my God.
Traveller's checks.
Jesus.
Traveller's checks.
But this is like, although we're talking about a product-based, business here, there are a lot of transferables when it comes to services, because something that's standing out when you're talking, we were doing a little bit of a chat before we started this podcast as well, is the USP bit. And that's the bit where it's get creative. It's like, if you keep doing things in the same way, you're going to get left behind. And I think this is the big thing that people are going to take away from this chat with you today, is that we want people to start thinking a bit outside the box, have a little bit of innovation and diversification, and go, do you know what? Is that what works now? Is that really the same as what was working then? Probably not.
Sure, maybe that's even why people are struggling now, because we're still, certainly in the training industry, we're still doing what we were doing like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the same offering all the time.
You have to continuously move. And like I say, one thing I've always said in business, and one thing I always say to my customers is, look at where you're going to be in 5 years' time, because if you're in the same spot in 5 years' time as you are now, your business is going to be significantly lower, just naturally, because you're going to get wastage. You can't think of any part of the industry which has stayed static. I mean, if you were selling 30 years ago, you were selling, let's say, classic muesli rabbit mix, for example, you had all the market because that's all people were using. Now, 30 years on, it's like less than 20% of the market, because you have like extruded rabbit mixes, you have fruity rabbit mixes, you have rabbit mixes with dandelions and all kinds of old wacky garbage in it. And like, but that's the reality, is that things keep moving. So if you're like, rabbit muesli is what I do. I don't do nothing else. No, good luck to you. Like, enjoy going down the tubes. I mean, I saw loads of business do over the years. I mean, there's one I can really think of who was like a pigeon food supplier, you know, and he was the biggest in London, biggest in the southeast. And yeah, you know, he was big on bird seeds and he was big on pigeon foods. And look, 30 odd years ago, when I was a kid in the pet shop, we sold loads of budgie mix. We'd sell a few bags of budgie mix a week and loads of budgies, loads of canaries, all this sort of stuff. And then you'd have all the pigeon fanciers come in for their pigeon food. This stuff doesn't exist anymore. I mean, how many people do you know own a budgie?
No, not many.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm trying to think about pigeon food. It's just never really occurred to me to go and assume you could buy pigeon
Unless you
food.
visit in Trafalgar Square, do you go and buy some pigeon food?
But that's not, he was actually my customer. Bernard, his name was.
Right.
But he was my customer. And like, he used to take, in the summer, he used to take tons of pigeon food. And then when Ken Livingstone became mayor of London, he decided he didn't want a pigeon food stand on, even though this has been in his family for generations and generations and generations. He said he didn't want a pigeon food stand on Trafalgar Square because he wanted to move most of the pigeons off. So he paid him off for his business.
Wow.
And shut him down. But I lost all the work. I mean, I'd supplied him for a bit afterwards because he had to gradually feed them. So otherwise they were like starving to death and just dropping dead in Trafalgar Square. But, yeah. But again, that was a considerable part of my business. I was selling tons and tons of pigeon food to one guy. Overnight, that part of the business was gone. But that's how business works. So that's why you need to always be looking at, okay, today I'm doing this. It's superb. But your customers will, you know, like, you know, if you've got a dog feeding, if I'm sell your dog a dog food, your dog is going to at some point either want to change its dog food or it's going to, let's say, you know, pass away, or the owner might pass away. Mm-hmm. You need a continuous flow. And if we look at, let's say, the dog food market even, you know, 20 years ago, James Wellbeloved and Royal Canin were like the creme de la creme of dog foods. Who thinks that now?
Yeah.
Because now we're obsessed with meat content. We're obsessed with, you know, there's the raw food thing has like blown up, you know, but then go back to the 80s, raw food was massive in the 80s.
It's gone full circle, isn't it?
Yeah, and it died a death and like nearly everyone got rid of their freezers and now everyone's back on raw food. And, you know, that sort of era of kibble and, you know, Arden Grange being whatever, and Arden Grange have just released a load of products which are higher meat content because they've fallen behind the curve.
Yeah.
But, you know, good luck with that. You were late to the party now on this next thing. So you've always got to be the innovator if you want to be successful. I mean, you can grab onto everyone's like, you know, coattails and you might make a living, but it makes it a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I really like this because I think it's something that hopefully will get people thinking a little bit differently about what it is they're doing. Because if you look at like the dog knowledge changes in science, you know, science-based training and all the knowledge that we know, and I feel like people do course after course learning this new thing, don't they, in dog, you know, training. Yeah. Like we've learnt this new thing, we've learnt all the proprioception stuff. We do, you know, ACE is an example, isn't it, of like how we can bring in sort of just thinking about how the dogs move differently and how we can enrich their environments and all this kind of stuff. And then like we're trying to shoehorn it in, but we're not doing a very good job of it.
You know what it is though, is a lot of people when they learn this stuff, what they're not doing is they're not looking at it and saying, who's buying this? Yeah. And why are they paying money for it?
Is there a need for it?
It's a bit like, and this is going to sound a little cynical, but force-free training. Like when you're actually in the position where you need to do something with your dog because it's a lunatic and it's biting you, are you thinking, what I want is a force-free trainer? Or are you thinking, do I want the most effective trainer possible?
Just want the problem fixing.
Now, if you learn a new thing, which let's say, I don't know a lot about dog training, I'm not going to pretend I do, but let's say is really good with, let's say, working breeds. Like, let's say you've got like a Malamute that's an absolute nightmare. It's like always the working temperament just takes over and it's really hard to deal with. And you learn something that goes with that. You can sell that because you can say, look, this particular structure is aimed at working breeds like Alaskan Malamutes. We do X, Y, and Z because this combats this part of its personality, and actually sell it as, if you've got a problem Malamute, this is what you need to do to actually combat. But just saying, I do compassionate force-free training. I was like,
doesn't mean anything.
Good for you. Good for you. You know, that sounds great, but I've got a problem. You know, it's like having a lovely mechanic, you know?
Yeah.
What I want is a mechanic who can fix my car because my car's broken down, not one who's like makes me a nice cup of tea and has a chat, you know?
Yeah. Do you know what? It is interesting because there's, well, you've seen it, even if you don't necessarily are in that training. It's so, it's vile. It's a vile place to hang out at the moment. But there is this idea that if we're going down the label route, that the balance trainers seem to be doing better from a business standpoint than the positive trainers in the force-free community. And I genuinely believe that's linked with what you've just said there. Because if we're going down that route of, we're force-free, we're doing all this, but we're not connecting with the problem, whereas arguably, I don't see balance trainers going out there, and we work with balance trainers as well, and I don't see any of them going out and going, oh, we use XYZ, that's why you need to come and work with us. It's like, well, they're not coming at it like that. They're just actually focusing on the problem.
I'll give you an example in product. Sustainability, right? For example, everyone gets excited about sustainability, but it doesn't sell product.
Yeah.
It's second or third on the buying decision.
Yeah.
When you buy a dog food and you change your dog food, for example, you're looking at, I've got a dog that's got, let's say, loose poos, for example, or my dog's got like bad joints, or my dog's old and he kind of needs an immune boost or something like this, What you're not thinking is, how can I be more sustainable? Look, everyone likes sustainability. Everyone likes the idea of it. I like the idea of force-free, compassionate training. But if I've got a problem that needs solving, that's like second or third on my buying decisions. So if you are a force-free trainer, it's much more important to say, my methods work for this reason. This is what I deal with. This is what I specialize, niche into that. I'm great with working, let's say, medium to large working breeds because I use this particular method, than actually going, I'm a force-free trainer, because I'm sorry, it doesn't make me part with my money.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't land, does it? It doesn't actually talk to the person. And a lot of what we talk about actually quite a lot is the jargon that goes with it as well, because it's like force-free. Does anybody even know what that means? Ethical, all this stuff, which is sort of said, and it's like, we know, from our hearts, we believe it, right? So we're like, this is what I feel, this is my passion, great. But is that what the owner's feeling as well? But like you said, I love the way you've just put that, because it's so true. I just want the bloody problem fixing with my dog, really. Can you do it?
I think the problem is you have to change your mentality from a mentality of what do I like to what makes my customer part with their money, combined with what I like, because you're not selling to yourself. And even if you were, a lot of people, look, there's a company at the moment, funnily enough, and I won't mention names because it could be a little bit embarrassing, but they're selling a freeze-dried dog food, and they're struggling to sell it because the price is high and blah, blah, blah. And the person who is selling the product is a raw feeder. But it just logistically, it seemed easier to do a freeze-dried product. What are you doing? Do you know what I mean? Sell what you believe in.
Yeah.
Because if you believe in something, if you let's say you're a trainer and you're a force-free trainer, and you're selling your services, sell why you're so good. Don't try and anticipate that your point of difference is force-free, because that's not what people are actually looking for. What they're looking for is your effectiveness on the job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is difficult. It is difficult because, and also look, force-free, like you said, what does it mean? What does sustainability mean? It's up there in the ether. It's like, how sustainable? A little bit, tiny bit, big lot. Is this a little bit more? That one, what's the metric? If there's no metric, force-free could be, well, I'm force-free 90% of the time. And then sometimes I might have to like give them a little bit of a rough handle. Do you know what I mean? Or is it 100% of the time, or is it 50%? Or, you know, or it depends how my mood on the day, you know?
Yeah.
And this is the problem. That people are just looking for results.
Yeah. And almost trying to, like, everyone's got a choice as a consumer. And like, so if that person likes the sound of you, do they really need to know what you are? Because if they talk to you, they can ask those questions and say, Joe, I'm really like, I feel passionately that I don't want any tools used on my dog. I don't want this. And you go, actually, no, that isn't me. I am going to use tools. Well, there we go. We've got that out the way. I don't feel like needing to plaster that everywhere is going to influence what somebody does, because they will do it or they won't do it. And B, is it really going to be effective? Is that the message you really want to be putting across primarily? Or I can fix your problems. You've got this pain. I can fix it. This is what we can do together. Great, you know, and this is me. So it's very much that messaging is very messy a lot of the time with dog trainers.
Yeah. It has to be all that outcome stuff, isn't it? It's like, even if you put your headspace in a consumer mode, it's like, well, I know what's going to be important for me, so I will actively seek out things that are important to me. Like when I became a parent for the first time, I was like, oh, what the fuck am I doing here? So let me look at people that actually inspire me based on what I like, but I'm going out and doing that research. I don't need them to come to me and almost
sell it.
It's like I see people selling the tangible stuff of it all the time, instead of, well, actually, hold on, that big initially to get somebody through the door and somebody interested in working with you. It's got to be more outcome based in going, well, like you say, I've got a problem. Or even if you're referring it back to the pet food market, it's like, oh, actually, I've got a dog with joint issues. So actually, if there's marketing on a bit of paper that says this is for dog with joint issues over this age and this breed, immediately I'm going to be like, oh, you're talking to me.
Yeah. But like we were talking beforehand about cod liver oil, for example, you know, like nobody knows why anyone gives cod liver oil, but you know, it's because of a poor marketing campaign by people who are selling it. I mean, you look at cod liver oil and you compare it against salmon oil, and it's the omega-3, the omega-3s are different. They act differently. Cod liver oil stimulates brain function in puppies. It's great for dogs under 1. Salmon oil deals with inflammation and joints. It's great for dogs over 1. But again, if you don't sit down and actually explain that to somebody, why are they buying it? They're just like, well, it just sounds like an old-fashioned fish oil. I use salmon oil. That's better because it's kind of new and funkier, you know. Or I use sardine oil because it's even newer and even funkier, you know. Or I use hemp oil because it's... But they're not even sure why they're using these different things. But if you can lay it out and actually explain to people under what circumstances you take the money off them, it's really important.
Yeah.
Because everybody's limited on money. Nobody likes to just throw money against the wall. Yeah. So if you're a trainer or a product or whatever you are, you need to make a concerted effort that these people need to be convinced that you are going to solve a problem. And now that could be emotional, but it could also be, you know, an actual problem. And the actual problems is where most of the money is, you know. So the emotional side of it, which is the sustainability, so the thing I learned was there's three points to sell something. If you want to sell something, you've got 3 key notes, and that's emotion, logic, urgency. The emotion side of it is generally fairly easy to please. Like, so the force free side of it, that's a nice emotional part, you know. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Sustainable, it's a nice sounding thing. Yeah, I like the sound of that. But then you have like logical, which is this actually going to solve my problem? If I look into this dog trainer, do I feel confident that if I pay them £100, £500, whatever the price is, are they going to solve my problem? What logically says that to me? Is there videos showing how they solve it? Is there testimonials? Is there people saying, I had an Akita, it was a nightmare? Here's a video of him before, here's a video of him after. Thank you very much, Mr. Flip's training school or whatever it is. Okay, and then it's urgency. Most of the time this comes down to, I have this problem right now. I go to the shop, I'm hungry, I want to buy something to eat. I think, right, what's going to satisfy that food? I go into Greg's.
Yeah, well, this is it, right? So we stopped on the way for podcast recording and I didn't have any lunch. And you were like, Greg's? And I went, it was just there. And it was easy. And it was absolutely vile, can I just say? What I had was a vegetable bake and it really wasn't very nice. But it was a need for me to pick that thing up and go, I need that quick. We were literally on a time thing as well. Need that quick. It's veggie. It'll kind of fill a gap in my stomach. And that's what it did.
Logically, and that's why I say the emotional side was actually the lowest part of the decision. The urgency of I need something now.
Yeah.
Logically, I'm going to get a veggie bake because that's going to fill me up. If I get a bag of donuts, I'm just going to feel like afterwards. Yeah. Emotionally, it was sort of like, that seems good enough. And most of the time with emotional, it is that's good enough. That's fine. It's the urgency and the logical side you actually have to sell. So you have to hit people when they're in an urgent need of something, but then you have to logically convince them that this is the right thing for them to buy. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. You could be selling an app, you could be selling a car, you could be selling like services. It's all the same. We all think about stuff in the same way.
Yeah, and I think it's almost important to circle in on that and go with regards to getting that logical messaging out. I don't know, like we're a big believer of like, if you're finding yourself having to convince somebody, then it's not right for them to almost buy from you. However, it is important to share that information and go, here is all the logical information that you would need for you to make a decision. And I don't know, I think it's just something that we've always got into on how we feel like that integrity bit on the selling front, but I totally get where you're coming from.
I think also it's important not to cloud things as well. Like when it comes to USPs, don't have 50.
Yeah.
Because then you don't know what you're buying. Yeah. You know, it's like if you have a product, if you have a service, try and niche it in a certain way. You can take on other clients. I mean, not everybody who buys a can of energy drink actually wants an energy kick. You know, most people, they just like the taste of it. They think they look cool with it, whatever, but, don't have 50 different USPs. Don't say, I'm great with working dogs, gun dogs, toy dogs, like utility dogs, big dogs, little dogs, puppies. It's just like, okay, that's the equivalent of being good at nothing.
But this is what most dog trainers will offer.
Because it's that thing where you're so worried that you're going to miss a sale.
Yeah.
You miss 10. And actually, rather than doing what you're good at and getting better and better at that, you're so scared of like, okay, well, if I don't take this bit of work, I'm going to end up like, destitute. But actually the reality is you'll get more work, which actually is better, which you're better at.
Yeah.
Just by niching in and saying, look, I specialize in, let's say, like we said, like medium to large working breeds. With, let's say, anxiety and, like the chewing problems or whatever, rather than saying, because then if I've got a Malamute that's destroying my house because it gets anxious and that's what you do, well, then I'm going to use you, right? Yeah. I'm not going to use the guy who's like, I deal with everyone, man. I can do everything. Big dogs, little dogs. Look at this Chihuahua. I trained him to jump through a hoop. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would I use that person? This person is what I need. And there is enough work out there for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, but it's just so much.
But it's by bringing the people. And that's not saying if someone comes for with you with a Chihuahua and they want to jump through a hoop, you can't take that work. It's just that you've got to pitch somewhere.
Yeah. There is this innate fear, isn't there? And I do actually remember having these thoughts when I'd not long started in the industry. And I was like, and I think, I now know it's because I didn't have that underpinning strategy to go, right, who am I targeting? Where are they coming from? Where am I putting my efforts to actually bring people into the business, like that whole sales machine? So it was very much reliant on, because it felt like slim pickings because I'm waiting for people to come to me. As soon as a call came in, I'm like, pitch fest, I do this and I do that and I've been doing it for so long and I was trained by so-and-so and this is literally how I would pitch someone and it's so cringeworthy. It's like, I was doing this. Oh, if you research this person, you can go and find all about them and that's who I learnt under. And I'm like, well, that fills somebody with the utmost of confidence,
Drives
doesn't it?
someone away.
To go,
It's too much.
oh, but it does it. But it comes from that place of, because I'm not getting those consistent leads in, I cannot afford to turn everybody down, and I think that's where this mindset comes in of, well, if I'm going to niche and put my expertise into those like northern breeds, because I did contemplate doing this with my huskies because it's unusual. I was like, I could be like the husky specialist. But instead I was like, oh, but how many people are realistically going to ring me about huskies? But look at all these Labradors that are near to my house and all these Frenchies and all of this and all of that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to lose business if I just wait for my one special breed that's out there. And that was the fear, but it's because I didn't have that sales engine, that strategy machine to go, this is what I'm good at and this is how I'm going to target everything.
I think that's the problem with most people, though, is like when it comes to business, you need to have so many different hats you wear.
Yeah.
That it's very hard. Like it's one thing to be a great trainer. It's another thing to be a good business person. It's another thing to be a good marketer.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to actually combine all these things.
Yeah.
And look, product is the same. Like there's so many companies with great products who have really bad distribution or, really bad marketing, or the packaging is terrible, or, the sales rep they employ are useless. Like it's just there's so many different things you can fall down on to actually like get to like, let's say your potential, top end of where your business can be. But it's also about just not making like rookie mistakes as well, I think. And I think that's just comes from listening to people who can give you a little bit of advice. And also just looking inside yourself and putting yourself in the side, just imagining you're a next door neighbor and what would they buy under those circumstances? And actually say, well, if I was looking as my next door neighbor for a dog trainer, and what would I actually be looking for,
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, they don't take themselves out of the scenario. They just like to hear their own. They call it the mum test, don't they? They talk to their mum and say, is this a good idea, mum? And they're like, that is wonderful, darling. You're going to do so well. And they go, oh, well, this is great. And all my friends think it's fabulous.
Got validation then.
I mean.
My kids are never going to have that.
No, you're going to be brutal. You're going to be so brutal. I feel sorry for your kids,
actually. Clay actually came over to me the other day and he's like, look, Mummy, what do you think? But he's got obsessed with these Hot Wheels tracks. He's going to be 5 next week. He was only little. And he was doing all of this and he's like, what do you think? And I was like, well, I was like, it's awesome, but that could be a little bit better. So how can we tweak this? But he went back and he fixed it and then it was a million times better. So I'm like, so I was like, maybe I failed the mum test.
No.
Oh God, I've lost my throat. One of them.
What I wanted to ask you actually, Clayton, was with those wise words that you're coming out with, right? And they are, is that as a result of mistakes you've made and you've learned, or were you given some advice about it and you didn't make the mistakes? Like, where's that coming from?
I have made so many mistakes, man, like so many. And like, I think it is like, there's a combination of words and experience. And look, I've learned a lot from other people. Like, growing up, I learned to be a good sales rep by watching other sales reps. Like there's a guy called Jim Maloney who was Nutro, and then he set up Bargain Heads and he sold out. He's now working with Procuro, but I used to watch him as a kid, 17-year-old, 16-year-old boy in the pet shop, and he would talk to, even me, like in the same way he would talk to the owner, and bringing a bag of donuts, be super nice, and you learn from different people, different strategies. And another friend of mine who owns a pet shop, like I watched him selling, like how he talks to customers, how he understands it. But look, I'd always keep myself, even if I was wholesaling and B2B, if I could do crufts. So I had a customer who used to do crufts with natural dog trees. I go and work on his stand because I want to know what people are saying on the sharp end. And it's really important not to actually divorce yourself from that, because a lot of people in business they gradually get further and further and further away from the sharp end of where you should be. Do they lose sight of what sells and what doesn't, and why something sells? They're just used to people saying, "Oh, it's wonderful, congratulations, that's a fantastic product, sir." But yeah, I've made loads of mistakes too, like tons. Like I think it's normal. I was always of the mind that I would throw any idea against the wall, and some of the ideas I didn't throw against the wall because I was like, "Nah, that's not going to work," and they've turned into. I mean, look, antlers, for example. I looked at them when they first come out. I saw them before they got big, and I was like, there is no way I'm buying them. Then why would you give your dog an antler? It's just like a hard rock.
Yeah. I've always thought
I've never understood it.
I don't. My dogs don't.
I bought them
anyway.
I still bought them.
And then they're just a trip hazard.
I didn't see it. I couldn't see it. Like I was like, it doesn't smell of anything. I don't,
What's enticing it?
And then people are like,
dog?
yeah, you can spread peanut butter. And it's like, I could spread peanut butter on the brick. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, okay. But it was like,
True.
So I didn't buy it. And then I was like, I was wrong. And I bought other stuff and thought this is going to be the best stuff ever. I remember buying a load of fat balls and I like got them infused with like insect and berry and all these different flavors. Didn't sell. No, everyone was like, I just want fat balls. Ended up selling them for less than the price of normal fat balls and they cost me more, But you make mistakes. You in your head, you think people are buying this for a certain reason. You're wrong. You take the L and you move on.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have to like tie up loads, there's risks worth taking and risks that aren't worth taking. If you can risk small continuously, like little gambles here and there, and it's not going to hurt your business, then you can like do them and see if it runs. Because it's important that like even an idea which seems mediocre to bad, as long as it's not like something that's going to damage your brand or like you're forcing it on somebody. But things, when they work, you'll just put it out there and people will just love it.
Yeah.
And you just don't even understand it. And a lot of the products I even did, like, for example, the Beefide, like, which you used to buy.
Yeah.
It was only because a dog trainer bought them, loved them, thought they were great for puppies, put it on like her network of puppy school people. And then it was just like,
we all bought them.
Yeah. And everyone bought them. It was just like, woof. And I didn't see it coming. I just thought it was a great alternative to Pizzle. That's all I thought when I bought it. I thought this is a great alternative to Pizzle. It's cheaper. Dogs love the taste of it. This will sell. That was my thought process. I wasn't even thinking about what else could happen as a result.
It literally changed my life when I got those because you have a room full of quiet puppies, so I could actually talk because normally like chaos. They all just sit there because you'd give one out, like so you'd give a free one out, and then you'd have queues of people buying
Get them
them.
hooked.
And I literally could not order them fast enough. Like I was probably one of your best customers. So I'm constantly ordering them, and people were like, "These are amazing! Like I've never seen anything like it." They stunk, didn't they?
Yeah,
Those
they did.
beef hides. Absolutely stunk, like no other ones you could buy. And so it was like the best product ever. Like that was just, they were amazing.
And that product went from being like a mediocre product for me to I sold more in value than pig's ears. And it was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like literally bringing over pallets of that product. It was insane. And I'd like to say that I could see it coming 100%, but I couldn't. And sometimes you do, and I've got better at assessing products. But again, a lot of that's through experience. So it's like you have a product like that and you find out why it sells. And you go, why did it sell? And then you dig into that. So that way then, when you're next looking at products, you've got a better idea of why different things sold. I mean, I had like, it's not a dog product, but it was a hay product I had. And I just bought, we used to sell compressed chopped hay, which were in these like packed bags. And I used to sell loose packed small hays. And they used to sell much better than the compressed. And I thought, well, let me speak to my farmer, see if he'll pack me a large version of that. So I thought, it looks like there's more in it than what it is because it's loose packed rather than compressed. I thought it was just, but actually the reason people liked it sold crazy. It was like a really big seller for me. And the reason it sold crazy wasn't because of my initial thought is it looks like you're getting a lot. It was because it wasn't put through the packing to compression. It wasn't chopped. So it was long stranded. So it was still like in a very good state and the animals would like it better. and there wasn't dust everywhere. And so like what you start off with as an idea isn't actually what sells it half the time, but it's important to get that customer feedback and say, why are you selling a lot of this? And I think, again, a lot of people don't do that because they kind of feel they know the reason themselves. So if you are a dog trainer and you're getting a certain type of customer coming to you, it's worth actually just asking your customers, why did you choose me?
Also, this leads me on to something actually that we've never talked about on here.
It's so weird sitting this close to you when we're doing the podcast.
It's a little bit.
So I just get like a noise behind me. I'm like,
I get excited and stuff. No, the feedback form thing, right? So when I used to run puppy classes, we'd give out a feedback form and people would sit there filling it out. And you 99% of the time, great, loved it, puppy loved it, right? And you're like, yes, that's what I'm expecting. Yes, yes, yes. And then you'd get the one with the comment that might not be bad, but you're not expecting it. And it's like, he could have been a little bit better at this. You're like, oh my God. And do you know how offended I'd feel because someone didn't...
Offended?
Yeah, if someone put anything negative...
Offended.
But then what's the point in giving out the feedback form?
Exactly. This is where my point is going with this because and I'd just be like, that one, and just put it to the side and just like not do anything with it.
Yeah.
Not like actually think that person's got a really valid point. I'm like, you're annoying and put you to the side.
How dare you not like big up my ego?
Yeah, exactly. And so this is where that thought process comes. I'm too in it. Like I'm too in it and I think I'm brilliant and I think you should love everything I do. And then when you don't, I'm like, well, I'm not going to do anything with that because I know I'm right and you're wrong. Like that's the attitude I used to have.
Ooh,
my God,
cringy,
it's really
isn't
icky. Really
It's really common. Like it's really common. Like people struggle with the criticism because they don't see it as a chance for learning.
Yeah.
Like
I didn't see it, yeah.
I mean, look, you have to learn to take it. And it is rough sometimes. It is rough because especially when you emotionally invest yourself. And look, if you're a trainer, it's you're selling. I'm selling products. I can sort of go, they say it's crap. It's not me, really. It's just a product I came up with.
Scapegoat your products.
You know? Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's not me. That's a product. You know? But if you are the product, it takes a hit. But if you want to get better, if you want to be successful, and look, negative feedback, it can be a little bit, you know, I'd like to say all opinions matter, but some matter more than others. And like, I think if you get one which is particularly rough, maybe run it past a couple of people who are relatively neutral to actually see if it's genuine. And then
I was thinking this, like, who do you run it past though? Because what I tend to see, anybody who gets a negative feedback, whether it's in a feedback form or it's been a comment or they're just having a little bitch and a moan or whatever it is, they then pop it in a Facebook group full of their peers and will then go, oh, this happened to me. And then it's almost like you get a collective warmth of other people in the same profession that then go, oh, well, it must be the client then, rah, rah, rah. And they're almost, I don't know if it's like bigging you up, but do you know what I mean? Like it's almost that,
validation of it's the right thing to do.
Validation is exactly the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But I think internet groups are a bit like that because within internet groups, you'll either get like everyone will like dive onto an opinion, and it's like we stand with you, or like you know, or you are like saying. I think it's important to have one or two people around you who can actually assess fairly. And look, that's not easy if you don't have those people around you. It's difficult. But
this is where mentors come in, though. This is where people who've been there, done it, made the mistakes can actually go, like, do you know what? And that's why we love ours, because they go, we're nothing to do with your business, like your industry. We know nothing about it. However, from a business perspective, you've got to consider this. Like, this might not be right for your client and that service might not be right. Have you actually thought about that? And you're like, shit, no, because I'm so in it. I haven't even thought about that.
But it could also be the way you're marketing yourself as well. Because, again, if you're trying to catch all as a, you know, going back to that, and they're turning up thinking you're going to do one thing, but you actually have like this very distinct thing you do, they're going to be like, well, this isn't what I was paying for.
Yeah.
I was expecting one of these other services, which they were sort of like offering on the side, you know? So, yeah, it's important. But I think there are some negative feedbacks, which are just, you know, people just in a bad mood or whatever. Yeah. But I think it's also good to ask people, not like the question shouldn't be, was everything great?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like how was today for you? Was my feedback. That's waste of time feedback generally. in my opinion. It should be, why did you come in the first place? And how did you find me? And why did you choose me?
Yeah.
Because that's a really important thing for you getting future leads.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need to be producing all the time. And like actually saying, if it was just like, you know, I Googled you, like, or it could be recommendations, or it could be a Facebook site, or it could be like an advert you put somewhere, who knows? But like try and lean into those ways of getting, because if you're getting a lot of leads from a certain direction and for a certain reason, you need to lead into that, you know? Or I saw your video where you know, stopped a Malamute from biting a donkey or something, you know, but do you know what I mean? And like say, well, okay, I'll do more videos like that.
I worked with a husky that was biting a donkey.
Oh, really?
I just want to say
they have that face. They have that face, donkeys. You know?
kept escaping out the garden and getting to this donkey and biting its nose. They kept forgetting to, sorry, this is really off topic, but they kept forgetting to shut the gate. I know. Sorry, that just reminded me of it.
I was thinking that's the most randomest example to come out with, and then you
not.
actually just validate it.
I could feel it. I could feel it in the waters. I could feel it was there in
So
the
I
ether.
want to circle back to actually that you mentioned earlier about risk taking and like doing little risk taking. So we do a lot of this in both of our businesses, like the training business and K9 Business Academy.
God, we wouldn't be here if we didn't risk take.
But we almost like, we call it like testing out things. So we'll test this and we'll test that. Now, I wish that dog trainers or dog professionals would test more, because that's where there's an element of risk. Like you say, little risks or little bits of testing doesn't mean that you're bound by that forever. And I think if people can start looking at that a little bit differently, there is no niche police. There is no like, you've got to do that once you put it out there, because people won't remember. Unless you keep telling people the same thing over and over again, they're not going to remember if you put a couple of posts out and then you change your mind. So like, I think that's a really important thing, isn't it? Is to go, it's not committal. Like you don't have to do that forever. You can try it. If it doesn't work, change it back, or try and change it in a slightly different way. So,
for example, if I had a new product, what I'd quite often do would be to buy like the absolute MOQ, like minimum MOQ. And like, let's say, even if the price, let's say, meant I made no money on it, like I buy in, let's say, the absolute MOQ, I sell it for what I pay for it, because I know that if I then place another order, the next order I'll have in will be at profit, and then send it out to people I trust, a variation of businesses, see how they get on with it. It's not tying me up. I'm doing it with people I have a good relationship with anyway. And I'm saying to them, look, these are some new products I was thinking of like doing. Stick them in the store, try them out on your own dogs, just see what you think. I kind of like it, but you know, I'm sometimes right, sometimes wrong.
Yeah.
And I think like just having that, because it's always more risky when, like, if you have no business, it's a different thing. But if you're already like doing okay, but you could do with being a bit busier, just having like little risks where you just try things and say, well, let's give this a little whirl, see if anyone bites, see what the interest is in it. Because a lot of the time, like I say, you do things and you're not even sure why they work as well as they do. Because as much as I'm good at assessing products now, I'll still get it wrong. I'll still like look and go, this product's going to be great for X, Y, and Z reason. And then someone else will just come in and go, I want loads of those because of some completely different reason, you know? But because you had like a vision of how it was going to sell, it doesn't mean that, like, you know, there's no other reason it could sell. So just having like little gambles is so important.
Yeah. We did this recently with... we had some clients we've been working with for a while in the dog training, and they were not seeing the progress. Well, we weren't seeing the progress, but they weren't necessarily getting the progress they hoped for. And we'd gone through all the stuff and there was nothing. I don't think there was anything that we'd missed particularly, but what we could see is time was a problem for them. So what we created was some like trained for you programs for them. Like they all varied, like in time, they varied like the intensity, they varied like a little bit. Each client was bespoke, like the program we put together. But we saw the gap and we were like, let's just position it. Like if they don't take it up, it's fine. And they all took it up, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they were all like, yeah, do you know what? Like, that's amazing. We would love you to do the work for us. And we were like, okay, if we can do it, we'll do it. And there's that testing bit, because they could turn around and gone, no, we don't need that. Well, that's fine, because we haven't put it out to the world. We've just put it out to the people that we trust, and they trust us. And actually, it was a gamble that paid off, because we got all of those clients.
And I think to kind of add into that as well, that we were talking to people that already knew us, already liked us, already trusted us. And I think, because I've heard advice like this, and I give advice like this as well. And over the years, I've gone, oh, of course that makes so much bloody sense, that if I just ask people what they want, or ask people what they think, then I'm going to get that information, and then I can actually do something with it. And then I'd turn to Facebook or whatever social media, but for me it was Facebook, and I would put a post on going, thinking of doing this. What do you think? And it's like, crickets, because I've got no audience. Or the people that I'm talking to are not my audience, because they're my friends and family that I've asked to like and follow my page, so it looks good and all of this. So it's almost like that double-edged sword of, yes, 100%, you need to be talking to people, you need to be, but you've also got to be doing that work in the background to build that audience, to build the people that are going to be in your network, because then that is where you get that feedback.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a challenge, really, isn't it? Because like I say, I've definitely been there where I've heard all of this advice, but then I've got no audience to talk to.
I mean, like one way, let's say if you're offering services, is just to offer like, a potential wait list or something like that, and say, knock it down the road a few months and say, like, if you were doing puppy classes at, I don't know, the local village hall, just put up a thing saying, we're planning on doing puppy classes at the local village hall starting in October. Please register. Thing that we're only going to be taking on 20 people. The spaces are going to be limited, so if you could register now, your interest. You don't have to put any money down to register. Just send us your details.
Yeah, I love that.
And then in the 3 months, if you can't get those 20 people in the 3 months, so again, create the urgency by limiting it.
Yeah.
But if you can't get those 20 people in the 3 months, and you've put it in your local village hall, you've put it on Facebook, you've spoken to the local pet store, you've spoken to then maybe it's not a goer. Maybe there's no demand in the market for it, or maybe there is, and maybe it's just the wrong time. But you can always increase that time and say, well, it's not going to be October now, it's going to be March, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until you actually then get enough people to make it worthwhile. And look, things can happen. There could be a TV program that like kicks off interest, or a TikTok, and then suddenly everybody wants to flood to do something. So, I mean, that's happened to me a number of times over the years where Bill Oddie, let's say, used to have a TV show where he used to feed wild birds, and like I went from selling like 5 bags of sunflower hearts a month to like 2 ton a week overnight.
Wow.
Just because he was like, feed sunflower hearts, because normal sunflower seed, they leave shucks all over the place, and then suddenly it's just like everyone wants sunflower hearts, and you have something on the back burner that suddenly hits at that point in time, and you can capitalize because you're already within that market. So even if, let's say, what you're doing, maybe the time isn't 100% right, just actually saying that you're going to be doing something and there's a wait list, and just limiting that, it can be enough to, you don't have to like put your whole hat on it, but you can, it just opens the door for people.
Yeah, I love doing that approach, because like you say, it comes across as a bit more committal, rather than asking the ether of people out there going, what do you think? And it's like, well, don't really have the full context. I may not be your target audience, and you should never ask like what in that way anyway. But yeah, like that is brilliant, because then you just go, look, this thing's coming. Are you interested? Yes or no. If you get bites, awesome. Then you start to go and create. Don't do, and we see this a lot, don't we? When people like create courses and everything like this. It's like, oh, I'm just going to spend a fuck ton of time now creating a course, then I'm going to try and sell it. It's like, why?
Don't know if there's a need for it. Don't know if it's ever going to sell. Don't know. I haven't got an audience, but I'm going to create this thing. Take loads of time, loads of money, and then crickets, because no one knows about it and no one needs it, maybe.
Well, or like, and again, it's the urgency thing as well. I mean, if it's like, if you've got that course and I can get it whenever and you're not exactly selling it well, maybe I might buy it off you at some point. But
or is it the positioning of it? It's not been positioned the right way. There's not value in it because you've not given the value in it.
But people don't really understand what they're going to get from the course. If you can say to somebody, look, I'm going to teach you to be a dog trainer that has a specialization in this, and this has, you could earn X amount of money per week by doing, we reckon you could in your area do, let's say 5 to 10 hours of work a month on this, and that will generate X amount of extra revenue just by you learning these skills. The course cost is X. You will have that paid off by X. We're limiting it to one person per wider postcode region. So if you're in a BB postcode, sorry, someone from BB2's had that. Can't serve you with this course because I'm limiting my course to certain areas. Do you know, there's a reason then for people to buy it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just say, I've come up with a course, it's bloody great. Do you want to buy it?
It's amazing.
Yeah. Good luck, Good luck selling that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all these, It's amazing how I love this crossover of products and services because it's all the same. It's the same processes and everything, perceptions and everything. Yeah,
and it's all about just sort of. Also, it's always I think when people sell things, they don't realize that if you pretend there's a lack of availability, it's that supply and demand thing. It's so for example. There's different companies who've hit the market with, let's say, dog food, and they've said, right, you're going to be our only stockist in this 5-mile radius. So everybody in the BD postcodes, just going to be you. If anyone wants to buy our dog food, they're coming to you. Now, no one might actually want that dog food, but for them, it's like, well, I've got this exclusivity to my area.
Yeah.
And so you're automatically causing this supply strangulation. And so they're thinking, well, if I sell this product to my customers, they'll have to drive 15 miles away to get it. And they're not selling it online because we're purposely keeping it off of online and this sort of stuff. It's a sales channel that goes above and beyond what the actual dog food does.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So you can have a mediocre dog food, and these people were selling mediocre dog food in fairness, but they got great distribution as a result of this one tactic, just by sort of creating a false strangulation of the market, saying, well, we're only going to serve you. Someone else comes to us, no, thank you. I mean, then they ditched it all 5 years later and sold it to everyone. But it's but again, it was just, that was how they got their foothold.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Always trying to understand the market, isn't it?
Yeah. And keeping up to date with everything, which the dog industry is not great at keeping up to date with things, really.
I think everyone's the same. I think normal pet food is the same. People get stuck in their ways. So how many people innovate truly? And how many people are just grabbing the coattails of the people who are innovating?
Yeah.
And by the time they grab them, they're already thinking about something else.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, look, I remember seeing on Dragon's Den in 4 or 5 years ago, someone saying, oh, I went to a pet store and I couldn't find natural treats for my dog. And you're like, where were you looking? Yeah. What pet store was that? Were you in a time machine that went back to the 1980s? Do you know what I mean? It's but everyone coattails on the same thing. But already, if I was setting up today, I wouldn't be selling natural treats because the market's flooded. It's it's gone as far as it can go. It's just people then fighting on price. And maybe you get some wacky thing in alligator feet or something. But no, it's real products, real products, real products. But you're fighting amongst, it's never going to be a big thing. So, catfish heads, or I remember one of the products I actually had which failed. And this is off subject, was a whole pig's head cooked in honey.
A pig's head?
A whole pig's head.
In honey?
Whole pig's head.
Oh my God.
Cooked in honey.
How long did that take for a dog to eat?
The problem was they could eat in a day.
A day?
And this was the problem.
Mind you, I could see Axel doing that.
And then the trouble was then they'd throw it up because it was too rich for them.
Yeah.
And so you'd have teeth and everything all over your,
yeah, because I suppose you wouldn't really want to try and take that away from the dog.
How valuable
so it was
pig's head.
A whole pig's head.
Oh, jeez.
So we canned that one. But I mean, but initial sales were amazing. People were like buying them
All
like
over
crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it was just a problem.
Maybe a third of a pig's head.
Honey head, we called it. Honey head.
Honey head.
The honey head, yeah.
Oh my God.
Because we were just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just do a whole head, rather. And it was, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Clayton, can we find out a bit about your podcast?
Sure, yeah.
Go on, tell us about it. What's it all about?
So the podcast is called Pet Business Disruptors, and I sort of do the podcast really to try and give light to people who are doing things that are different in the industry, because it's very hard to get your stuff out there. Like we need category disruption all the time. So we need people who are actually doing something that's totally different. But the problem with category disruption is that nobody's looking for it. Nobody's looking for, I think we were talking about in Genius Probiotics, who was a guest I had on, where he sells probiotic cleaning fluids and probiotic ear treatments, mouth treatments, and that sort of stuff. Fantastic stuff. But when you're thinking about cleaning your floor, you're not thinking about what I'm looking to do is get rid of the bad bacteria, good bacteria. You're thinking flash.
Just get rid of it.
So the idea of the podcast is really just to give people a way of talking about that, a way of actually getting those products and services out there, which they do. If they're doing something a little bit different in the industry, get that product. Let's talk about it, because we need to talk in depth. And nobody wants to stand in front of a salesman for an hour and know every single in and out of it. But if I can put that in a podcast and people can listen to me talking to somebody about their products, about why it's good. So I had another guest I had on was like Lara from Carnley, who make let's say dry goat's milk. And dry goat's milk. So goat's milk is a great probiotic. So if you've got a dog with a stomach issue, goat's milk is great. But dried goat's milk, by the time they've gone through the cooking process, all those probiotics are gone.
Oh.
So there's companies out there which are saying that their dried goat's milk powder is a probiotic, which it isn't. So she's got the original goat's milk powder, which is great for getting, let's say, dogs to drink. Like if you've got a dog who's not drinking enough, it's a great way of getting to drink. But she does now one where they add the probiotics back in, because you actually have to put that back in. She does things like bone broth and talking about why you need bone broth. If you've got a sickly dog, can't eat properly, the bone broth, the collagen in it. And so just talking about things that in a more in-depth way that people aren't talking about, and that there's so much information to know out there. Like if you go into a pet store, it's very hard for them to know exactly what's going on. So actually being able to get that information out in like a podcast format where people can just listen is just something I wanted to do.
And is your audience like just the general public? Is it professionals? Like, is it mixed?
I would say it's a combination. I think it started off as like just people within the industry, but I think there's a lot more people listening from outside because obviously the numbers would suggest that it goes beyond the industry. So I'm assuming there's a lot of people who are just passionate about their animals, and who want to know more about, the dog food they're giving, or, the supplements they're using, or the cleaning fluid they're using, or whatever the product is, and and how they're doing it differently. I mean, look, I talk about other stuff. I talk about marketing. I talk about, things like SEO, influencer marketing, stuff like that. So if you actually have a pet business, there's a lot of resources there in terms of how to push your business forward in terms of marketing and that sort of stuff. Because obviously part of what I did for years was building a business and getting it out there and selling it. And I talk about running a wholesaler and what makes that side of the industry, how a distributor successful and stuff. But I'm really using it as a platform to get different ideas out there into the market.
Love it. Like it a lot.
And is that the best place for people to find out about you then, is from that podcast?
I think if you want to hear me talking about my business persona, I guess, I think if you want to listen to me talking about what I believe in terms of like what we were talking today, in terms of talking about building successful businesses, about understanding things like distribution or different products and why they're important, and like even if you're a dog trainer, for example, being able just to upsell your clients on some treats, like you used to buy my treats, you can sell them the treats afterwards. They go, oh, dog loves this, like natural upsells you can use where as a dog, somebody in the services sector, if you're talking to people, and you'll have more in-depth conversations than, let's say, a corporate pet store. Yeah. So you can talk to them and they can say, for example, my dog has got really bad allergies. I've changed the foods, but it could be environmental. And so you could say, well, change your cleaning fluid. It could be the cleaning fluid you're using, or if it is food based. I mean, I talk a lot about different allergies and why so many dogs have got chicken based allergies, or different novel proteins that are out there on the market and the health benefits that go with those novel proteins. So or if you're just a geek,
just like listening to all of that stuff, then Pet Business Disruptors podcast.
Exactly.
Get it in your ears.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, I've really enjoyed this.
It has been amazing. It's been really interesting. It's nice to actually, like I say, bat it back and forth between like product and the services, and that it's all much of a muchness because it's just business.
Yes.
But it's just selling, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's like people in the services, you kind of forget that you are a business and that you're there to make money. And,
it's what we bang on about a whole lot.
Yeah.
But you can do what you love, but you're still going to get paid.
But also, look, if there's, products you love as well, you can sell them. There's lots of good brands out there who want somebody to sell their products.
Yeah.
And, if there is no better advocate than somebody who uses that product. So, if you have a love of certain products, it's very easy to sell.
And it's not a hard sell if you're actually using those treats or you're using that lead or harness or whatever. They'll go, oh, what's that? And they tend to ask you rather than you having to sell it anyway. So.
I mean, it's different if you feed raw and you're trying to sell freeze-dried dog food, or like,
It's got to align, hasn't it?
It has to align with what you do. And and brands out there, it's a crowded marketplace. It's hard to get heard. It's not COVID anymore.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're meeting real people, you can sell products or work on affiliate links, like you can even do that. If you don't want to physically hold stock, talk to brands. Like a lot of them out there will work on affiliate links. You say, look, if I put customers your way, can you give me a discount code? They'll give you a discount code. Your customer will get 10%. You'll get 10% kickback. Yeah. That's a real common thing.
Yeah.
Do it. If you can, if that could return you £50, £100 a month, but that's 50, 100 quid a month that you wouldn't be getting otherwise. And it all goes into the pot.
I didn't pay for my dog's food for like 2 years when I was really on it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Because Puppy School had a thing with Nature's Menu as well. So we used to get all the treats and all the food and stuff like that as well. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They were sponsored. Like they sponsored us, so it's that was quite good. But it's that thing about like with the chews, for example, in the class, I'd give one out. Like you give a free chew, they're queuing. I didn't have to sell them. No? What are those magical items? I need one.
But when something's good,
it sells itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when I forget who it was from Puppy School, like called me and said, you're a B2B company. You don't serve the public. Like, do you take dog trainers? I'm like, yeah, I'll take dog trainers. But, because they're using it for business purposes. Mm-hmm. Like, because I was always, and again, this is part of you can't catch everyone. I wasn't a retail company. I refused to sell retail.
Yeah.
And like, again, if I was selling retail, then suddenly are people going to push my products the same? And you lose a lot more than you gain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, but trainers were a registered pet business. So yeah, I'm all in for that. But then you'll have other wholesalers who are like, yeah, but you got to have a storefront or something like that. And it's like, I don't know. You take sales where you can, as long as it's through business people making money rather than just somebody who's got a few German shepherds and can maybe make up an order, you know.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
On that note.
On that note, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming along to the studio.
Yeah, man.
You're familiar with it anyway, aren't you?
I am.
You do your podcast here.
And I only live 20 minutes away, so it's pretty convenient for me.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
That's all right. No worries.